This is the Indy Comics panel here at MegaCon. It's been a great MegaCon so far, so thank you all for having the energy to come out and talk about independent comics and what it takes to make independent comics. I'm really honored to have some really great creators here who are really working in the trenches to get independent comics out there. It's a tough business, but you know, it's a passion. It's a passion, and I know all these guys are going to tell you a little bit about their passion. We've got Juan Navarro here on the end. He's representing Creature Entertainment. He's doing some great things. Creature Entertainment doesn't just make independent comics, they're making movies. We had a great response to Juan's movie.
TS101 or Zombie?
Zombie Years.
Thanks for having me.
In fact, I mentioned people kept coming up and telling me it was their favorite of all, and we had some great films. So you got a lot to be proud of, and Juan, of course, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing. The thing I like about this panel, Brian Pulido is supposed to be coming, but everybody else here is Florida, man. Everybody else here is in Florida, so these are local creators who are making a national presence in what they're doing. Next to him is Martin Pierro, who does Cosmic Times and King Arthur. The legend continues. Martin is doing lots of great stuff. He's writing Blue Water comics. He did the Ariana Huffington. You were in Wall Street Journal. You're all over the place with that, and so your profile is definitely rising. You're going to tell us about all the stuff that you're doing. Right next to him is Ricardo Porven, who does Donnie Goth. He's also a filmmaker. He's done great stuff. You're linking up with Creature Entertainment these days too, but Donnie Goth is certainly your passion project right now. And next to him is Jeff Kaufman, who used to write AMs for Image Comics. Now he does Big City Comics. Big City Comics did a lot of titles, but now he's really breaking new ground with graphic novels, directly graphic novels. You had Terminal Alice, and your new one,
it's Chubba's book. It's called Horror.
Yes, it's probably not that appropriate, but it is certainly. You can't get away with it, but it's certainly new ground. So let's start with Juan. And Juan, why don't you introduce yourself? Oh gosh, yeah, I didn't promote myself. I do Students of the Unusual. It's a horror adventure series. There's 6 stories in every issue. We started off as a bi-monthly series, and very quickly nearly had nervous breakdowns amongst our artists and everything. So we do special issues now. We do special issues, and we have special issues available here at MegaCon. So Juan, tell us about what you're doing.
I'm the editor-in-chief of Creature Entertainment. We've been around about 3 years. We're based out of Miami, Florida. We're a film and comic book company. We make various intellectual properties. Right now, we're really set into our cons. We're doing MegaCon. We're going to be doing San Diego Comic-Con. There's a couple other ones that are up in the air right now. John Alua, the publisher's over there. We've been just putting everything out as much as we can. Sometimes just keeping our head down and just going at it. So luckily for this con, we just released Tommy, which I'm the artist and one of the writers. John's another, which is about a kid who has an imaginary friend, and he finds out his imaginary friend's a serial killer. So he tries to stop him. And we also have Ravenous, our werewolf book, which is also a flip book for Ultra Vixen, which is our first superhero title, and the aforementioned Zombie Years. Zombie Years is on the 5th issue. I've been doing that for 4 years now as a webcomic that updates every Wednesday. And we did a prequel film for it, and it's been great fun. And it's a zombie comic based in Miami. I love Miami, so naturally looking out into it, I said, where's the post-apocalyptic zombie story happen here and kill everybody? So I naturally went that way. So it's been really fun. Miami plays a character in it, and everything else is going on. So we've been really busy. And then we have TS101, which is one of our short films that leads into a new comic book series. So we're going to be tying our movies with the comic books. So you would see a film online, and you can also read the comic book. And we have a lot of things available digitally, and we're working on new distribution deals. There's just so many things on the table too, I can't even talk about it right now because we're just maneuvering right now. And we just added Rick on there, who's been an awesome audition. So we're just really building up. And I tell people all the time, success is the worst thing that can happen because that means you work more. So,
all right. Speaking of success, let's go on to Martin Pierro.
Yeah. All right. Well, I started off. I wanted to be a writer, and it seemed the easiest way to write a comic would be just to publish it myself. So that's how I started the whole Cosmic Times thing, and it just grew from there. My first book was Arthur. I just collected it as a trade paperback. I hooked up with some really talented guys, Zach Bassett and Boyan. and some other guys. And
Why
not? What do you want? And we put out, our books sold, and this convention just did From Blood. Like, Juan, we're out there trying just to get the company going, get it strong, and distribution's a key. And finding people who want to read our books is what we're here to do. And hopefully, if you guys make your own books, you'll do the same thing, or maybe we can find you to read our books.
Great. Great.
Yeah, hi. Prior to joining Creature Entertainment, I've been coming to MegaCon for a few years and hanging out with Terry, and Terry knows me from way back. Previously as a filmmaker, but also probably a few years ago I started this online comic book called Donnie Goff, and I did it about 7 years ago, and at the time the concept was, what if this 7-year-old second grader decided to go golf, and how different would he be from all his classmates? And he had this pet salamander that raised zombies from the dead, and he got into all kinds of trouble. And the strip was well received, and it had its own website, and it ran for about 6 months, and I got 2.5 million hits, and I got picked up by some German pop culture magazine, translated into German. And unfortunately, my career path took a different path, and I opened up an ad agency with a partner, and I got so buried in that I went away from the comics for about 5 years. And then I left the agency, and I split up with my partner, and now I'm on my own, and I have this time, and I wanted to get back to Donnie. So about 6 months ago, I decided to get back to him. Only I wanted to reintroduce him a little older now, so now he's a middle schooler, because I thought the opportunities for stories in middle school were a lot richer than a 7-year-old kid, like how far could I go with it? But in middle school, I had a lot of legs, and a lot of relationships, and different kinds of fun stories that I could tell. So I decided to launch it, but also launch it online. And because I had so much success promoting the first book through social network channels, this time I decided to launch it exclusively on Facebook. And I launched it and marketed it on Facebook since August, and in September we launched the strip, and it's about 10,000 fans on its Facebook fan page now. And so for this MegaCon, we collected the first 6 months of the strip and released the first collected issues of the comic.
That's a great model. A lot of comics are created web-based, and then as they get popular, they're able to bring them out print-based. And I've seen some of the bigger publishers bring out web comics, exceptional web comics, and bring them out as print comics later. Jeff Kaufman is certainly a wild card here, so I want to mention that you've actually made a documentary about how to fail in comics.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, this is the dream of everybody here is to succeed in independent comics. And you made a documentary on how to fail. Why don't you give us a few pointers?
Well, this lighting in here has me on suicide watch, so I apologize. It's a pretty dark room. I've been doing comic books about 7 years. I got into it because I did all my pro bono work in comics, and Big City Comics was created because somebody came to me and said, "Where are you from?" during a convention. I said, "The big city." They go, "Oh, New York." I said, "No, Orlando." And I kept the wise-ass name and became Big City Comics. We produced 31 single-issue books. We were doing about 4 months, dealing with Diamond, dealing with publishing and printing. The books were going all over the place. And the big part about that is this: is that money, you're going to spend your money if you want to do this, and you've got to be smart about it. Don't do dumb things. Don't just keep, well, I wrote it, so I can't rewrite it. Well, I've got the artwork, so this is what I'm stuck with. Make sure whatever you do is your best work, because you'll just keep pushing out and pushing out and pushing out. You'll just have basically a lot of bad work that people will know you for. So the idea came was because we own Resurrection Studios. We do commercials, things like that. And I was going to do an independent movie about my child who's on the autism spectrum. And after writing 12 pages, and I couldn't stop crying, my wife said, "Well, why don't you do something else?" I said, "What? A documentary on how to fail in comic books?" So that's where it came from. And we've interviewed everyone from Stan Lee to Dan Didio to Bagley to Terry to Kevin Eastman from Ninja Turtles. And we basically talk about all the really bad decisions you can make. Guys lost their wives, guys, lost all their money. Kevin Eastman, for example, he said, "How do you deal with creating, something like Ninja Turtles and then don't have a success for 20 straight years?" This is a very tough industry, and you guys think it's glamorous because it's like, oh, it's cool, I get to write comic books. Well, you will get write comic books, and you'll get to pay for comic books, and you'll have to, you know, make tough decisions like being here instead of being with your family and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into this, and you should understand, the big thing is understand the money. Understand how much this is going to cost you before you decide to do something. If you're a writer, you're the jockey. You need a horse. It's a lot easier to find a bunch of jockeys because anybody can write. Oh, I have this great story. It's about zombies, or it's about vampires, or it's about something. Oh, and I think he stole my story. Well, there's 4,000 different stories. Cavemen were writing your stories on walls 10,000 years ago. It's just how you put it out there, what makes people like it or don't like it. So that's what the documentary is about. Terminal Alice came out in August. It was published using Zenescope. It sold through its first run. They're doing a second one. I have basically a 2-year deal where I give them 2 graphic novels a year, and they publish them. So good for me, and hopefully I'll never have to print another comic book again. Thank you for those people who read it, and thanks for the people who might read it later.
Well, thanks, Jeff. You know, Martin, I'll call you in just a second, but I was thinking, because a lot of people had been coming up to me at this show in particular with their comic book ideas and how they could make their own comic book. Do you think that the first stage for an independent comic book maker at this point in time is to try and print an issue? Or do you think that, what direction do you think you should go on?
Well, I mean,
First step.
After executing it, I mean, after creating it?
Well, let's say you have obviously you have an idea, you have the art. You know, there's lots of talented people, I'm sure, in this audience who are artists. I'm not. I'm a BS artist. I'm a BS artist, but I can't draw worth a darn. You know, I can write a story, but I can't draw worth a darn. There's people who can write and draw, and they draw on these beautiful stories, and they say, man, I want to bring my comic, I want to publish my comic, I want to get it out there. I really want to get my project out there. What do you think the first step is?
I think luckily, because of the digital age that we're in, you can do webcomics. I mean, there's so many avenues. You can make a WordPress site, you can put comic space on it, and now you have a webcomic running there. You can set it up as a book to go through there. You can go on, make a PDF of it. I mean, there's so many ways that are, I wouldn't say there's no cost, but there's practically nothing to it to put it up and expose and get it out there. I think the main thing is to get the people to come in and get the word out. I think there's a lot of great ideas out there, but there's a lot of horrible marketing. And people don't know how to talk about their book. They don't know how to pitch an idea. That's where people kind of fail. But overall, that's like, to me, the least risk. But by the same token, you can't really grow or strengthen an IP, an intellectual property, fully until you start printing and publishing and selling your work and everything else. But it's a good testing ground. It's a good way to get that thing out and find out what people think. You know, you can put the first 10 pages up and have people come to the site, read it, look at it, be like, oh, okay, oh, this is cool. I didn't understand this. This looks stupid, blah. You know. So
building a fan base online is a great thing. Speaking of someone with a fan base, I saw Brian Pulido come in. Brian, come on up on the table. Probably the leader of success stories in independent comics. The creator of Lady Death and Evil Ernie. You were making inroads in independent comics. I'll never forget when Lady Death came out. Certainly a big deal. That's when the comic industry was selling lots more comics than it is now.
Oh, it was ridiculous back then. Yeah, when Lady Death, I guess my first comic was Evil Ernie. It came out in December of '91, and that was a cult hit. But when we put out Lady Death, it was by no design. There were other female-driven characters coming out at the same time, and the press dubbed it a thing called the Bad Girl craze, and it exploded for several years. So yeah, good times.
Well,
I'd like to claim credit and say it was a wonderful marketing ploy. I think in retrospect, some degree of it was just synchronicity.
Well, it's amazing because, I like to have a carnival atmosphere at my booth when I'm at these shows, and I have friends who bring in beautiful girls that make everything great. Well, one of the girls had the tattoo of Lady Death, and I was like, God bless it, Brian Pulido. It is amazing, but we were talking about somebody who just wants to get started in independent comics. And they dream of having their own comic printed and everything. Do you think that's the way for them to go? Juan just said, online is really the way to test it.
I think that's probably a valid and very smart way to approach it. We're definitely in a different era right now, and maybe going online would be a way of testing to see if there'd just be some general interest. You have your your personal drive and how you market something, which is critical, but also just seeing if the public would be receptive to the general idea. I guess I live in Phoenix, and what I notice people do when they're starting out too is they'll make their comic, they'll print it with a digital printer, and then they'll actually place it in comic shops throughout the state or throughout the Phoenix area. We have quite a few comic shops. And I guess from there it'd be a great way to gauge if people have interest. And then you take that result and say, okay, am I going to go national now? So I'm sure I think I've heard you guys talk about things like cost, and you really want to make sure you want to put your heart and soul into it. You'll definitely put a lot more money than you ever planned, but you don't want to go to the tipping point where you bankrupt yourself for this project. I'd say a lot of planning and scheduling, each individual step to the degree that you can. Back when I started, I didn't plan as much as I could, and I was doing these 24-hour days, and comics coming out good, it was coming out terrible, depending on the time of day. But some planning and test marketing, unless you feel balls out. But one thing I will say, this is the cautionary tale, and I'll shut up, is that in the independent comics world, we look at successes like The Walking Dead. They've been publishing for about 8 years, and that's the shining light. It is a tremendous success story. But in that 8-year period, I think there's been upwards of 400 to 500 new properties launched in the comics field that have been failures. And I don't always know what the difference is. I don't always know what makes things stick. But my advice to you is a cautionary tale, to be at one part completely believe in what you're going to do, but in another part always be cautious about the marketplace. It's a completely brutal marketplace. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think it's unforgiving. And 20 years in, I think every day is a new day. And how do you approach it? How do you reach people? How do you keep it alive? So I apologize for pontificating on that.
No, we're here to hear you guys pontificate. Certainly Rick is doing the online thing. I think using Facebook is a great opportunity for people because it's free.
Yeah, one of the things, I got a lot of criticism. I sent out a press release when I first launched it on Facebook. And the general comic population kind of laughed it off and said, well, that's a good gimmick, but not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody in the planet's on Facebook and all this stuff. And I was like, well, they do that 700 million. That's quite enough for me. And I just went ahead because I had a previous experience of social networking really helping get the word out in a very inexpensive manner. Because when I launched the first Comic Golf before Facebook existed, what I did is I promoted it on MySpace. And they used to sell these robot programs where you could add a bunch of friends all at once and that existing, but now you do it much harder and more expensively. But back then, you could add 3,000 people to your page in a week. And then every time you kind of do an episode come out, you could just send out a bulletin, and everybody would get this bulletin, and all of a sudden, I'd send out a little bulletin, and I'd look the next day, 50,000 hits on the site. And it was like, wow, this makes sense. And something that Brian was pointing at that I really believe is, the making of the comic is really not the obstacle. The making of the comic or the coming up with the character and the building of it, it's an obstacle, but the big obstacle is finding your fans. And how are you going to find these fans? And how are you going to interact with these fans? And for me, Facebook's been incredible as far as not only getting people to read the books, but being able to interact and receive feedback and speak with them on a one-on-one level in a way that there's no way I could do that by putting the book out in comic shops. Be there and you didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I get feedback, and I also get demographic results, whereas I know exactly who's reading it. I know how old they are, I know what sex they are, I know where from what countries, what cities they're from. You don't get that any other way. And so there's definitely tools and things that I've discovered that, for me, it helps me gauge, okay, if I'm going to go to a con, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to look at that's passing by that I'm going to stop and say, hey, have you looked at this? Because now I know, hey, if she's 13, 18, and she's kind of alternative looking, that's my target market. And it's proven itself. I haven't sold a lot here, it's a new character, not everybody knows it. But the people I have sold to fit that demographic to a T. It's unreal.
Very interesting.
Uncanny.
Martin, I interrupted you.
No. But the point also with the Facebook and all that stuff, you have to keep on it too.
Yeah.
And because I know plenty of people who publish comics launch their Facebook page, and if they're not continually working with it, it gets dusty, it gets old, people stop looking at it. And you have to keep active. Like I got the Facebook thing going because I was like, you gotta get a Facebook page, you gotta get a Facebook. I worked real hard, been working on it. Then hey, where's your Twitter? What? Now I have to do Twitter too? So you gotta keep up with what
I'm on the other end because I started Zombie Years as a webcomic, And it was really hard for me to go over to Facebook. I use Twitter as myself, but I was using Facebook, and I'm like, At Facebook, maybe I had like 100, 120 likes or something like that. But my comic gets like 30, 40,000 hits a month. So then I'm like, okay, how's this translating? And it's just simply pushing it. Yeah. I mean, you have to be on all those standards. You have to be on it. There's just no way you can go around it. You have a Facebook page, you have to be on it. You're going to do a website. You can't neglect anything. Because nothing is worse than getting, I don't know about people here, but you go to those neglected MySpace pages where it's like crappy grid GIFs from 8 years ago. It just looks bad.
The student said the unusual MySpace page is dead, but I still get notifications about crap, and I haven't been there in 5 years.
Yeah.
I quadrupled that motion. I think, I came back from some Hollywood meetings, and the real buzz is that everything is dynamic, whatever it is, so that you're always on whatever channel you're on, for sure. You'll lose people so fast. They just want to go to the next thing. And it's certainly not easy to keep people's interest to begin with, so at the very least, your social networking is dynamic and always going. Even that, there's no guarantee, but yeah, like these guys are saying, to put something up and walk away is certain death.
Yeah, for us, and that's like the number one thing if you do a webcomic. If you're going to post every Wednesday, post every Wednesday. If you can't do it, don't do it. If you're going to do it 3 days a week, and you can do it, awesome, but don't ever miss a day. Even if it's going to come out like crap, because it's better to have crap on there than nothing sometimes.
Yeah,
because people
out.
forget it, and you're done.
Well, that's how you end up having a nervous breakdown, too.
With
that time sense.
I started sucking my thumb.
Jeff,
I start depression.
Yeah, let's talk about depression. No, I certainly follow you on Facebook. Are you having a lot of success there?
It's a great way to interact with everybody from all over the planet. Now, enough about the gloom and doom. There's some cool stuff about this. Cool stuff is that you get to be around people you really care about. You go to a convention, you see friends that you see once, twice, 3 times a year. You drink afterwards, you have a good time. Every once in a while somebody comes up and says, I read your book. Remember 7 years ago, I finally bought that book and I liked it. And I'm like, yeah, you're the one. And, I remember Brian gave me some great advice, never eat a corn dog.
That's my main piece of advice.
He's right.
That's going to be on my gravestone.
I don't get it.
No, there's nothing to get. I mean,
Just
I feel my
good.
claim to fame is I've yet to eat a corn dog in life. So.
But he's also, we're going to do some cool things we haven't seen yet, because nothing's cooler. I don't know if anybody knows Claiborne Moore. He does Moore Creations. He's done all these great statues, whether it be zombie, whether it be Walking Dead, Conan, all this great stuff. Well, Brian has been honored, and Clay has been honored to do the character of a couple different versions of Lady Death. And when you see somebody ridiculously talented who's interested in doing something you created, that's a special moment. And I've seen the new work and the old work, and some of that's really cool. But as far as printing goes, anybody want to print their own comic? Okay. How much money you got in your pocket right now? No.
Not a lot.
Just give it to me and it'll save you a lot. Just don't do it. And I know that sounds stupid, but you're going to do something. And learn from people who have failed before you. Make sure that's the best stuff possible. That's, it's your best writing possible. I would say it takes 21 books to become semi-competent as a comic book writer. Read what people write. If you want to see what the best-selling book was, and actually try to script it out to how he scripted it out. And say, oh, well, yeah, there's certain things I need to know. Yes, a fight page cannot have 8 panels. Because when you got to punch him in the face of this panel, you go, oh, I can't see the punch. Of course you can't, because the artist only has so much room, but you don't know that until you brutally fail. So see which books you like the best and actually break down the panels and go, what did he write? What was he thinking about? And do that before you do your own, so that you can go, okay, I'm going to follow, there are certain guidelines to this stuff. People ask me, well, I wrote this novel, so I'm going to translate it to a comic book. Well, that's like, translating languages sometimes that don't fit. You're like, well, you have a 300-page novel that you're going to be allowed to write a maximum of 300 words, for every 10 pages or something like that. And it's very hard to get what you're thinking onto the page. And I can't draw a circle. So, I had to learn what to do for an artist, because I didn't know. And artists would say, Jeff, I cannot draw 300 people storming the Bastille. Well, why not? It's 300 people, Jeff. So just
just think. That's the best thing to do. Think before you do, and you will save a ridiculous amount of money.
Before I take questions from the audience, I did want to just ask Martin one question. When you were featured in the Wall Street Journal, did that help your career?
Well, obviously, my hits on my website were crazy.
Yeah.
I got a lot of new Facebook friends. That was nice. I'm sure they're all my good friends.
And you confirmed, dude. That's a contract.
Oh yeah,
I had never confirmed with a regular friend. At Facebook, you have to confirm that, yes, it's a contract. You are my friend. It's the last time you did that to one of your friends.
Exactly. It did help. It's like you say, it's increased my people knowing me now more. So
Your profile is rising.
yes, it's it hasn't turned into any more paying work though, which would be nice. But
Yeah, fame doesn't equal money.
it got me 2 more unpaying jobs, so that's great. So there we go.
Well, I did want to take some time to take questions from the audience. Yes, ma'am.
What I've heard a lot from other people is that marketing is the most important because there's so much other stuff out there that you want to put yours on top. So when it comes to that, what I can tell from what you already said is that you have to spread out as much as possible, like as much as you can within your budget, of course, and just try out everything. Like there's no one thing, or is there like one thing that you should at least try out besides the obvious, like going on Facebook and Tumblr and stuff?
The stuff that costs the less money.
Okay, so just try and do as many.
You can't do everything, and this is how a lot of people fail. Cross-gen, big city comics, people like that. When you put a lot of money into all these different areas, you probably have to target your market. What's your book about? For example, Facebook allows targeting for your advertising. So you can target specifically to like if I'm doing a convention, let's say in Washington, Seattle, I did a Bellingham time. 6 people showed up, it was great. But I targeted my Facebook campaign to the colleges and everything in that area. So what happened was we had about 100, 200 people show up and bought the book. Now, if I would have just done Facebook advertising across the whole U.S. or something else like that, I wouldn't have sold books there. So you have to decide, I'm doing an event in Orlando, okay? I'm gonna spend $200 on Facebook advertising, and I'm gonna geo-target that down to, geo-target, see? I'm like official. Geo-target that area down to, let's say, 50 miles from this area, and then you'll make sure that your hits are actually going to be worthwhile instead of a hit going to Santiago, Spain, where the guy doesn't even understand the ad itself. So that's, spend your money smart.
You can also target culturally by people's likes, not just geographically. So let's say if your comic is like another comic, you could say people who like this comic probably like my comic. So people tend to write their interest when they like something. Let's say if you like something on Facebook, it becomes part of your database. So now you can run an ad to people who like that specific title and introduce them to your title.
I'm very excited.
Another marketing technique is really simple. It's called the circle of influence. So you're in the center of that, and it happens in the social networking world, but it happens in the real world as well, too. So it starts with you, then your family, then your friends, and the communities you're involved in. So that could be whether it be your school or your local comic shop or the clubs you belong to. Those are all potential markets for you. And I'm a little more old school than these guys, only because I started when none of that stuff existed. So for me, you start to get some empirical data and feedback in the real world dealing with those influences. So that's another, like on top of what these guys are talking about, get out in the world and start talking to mom, dad, friends, family, clubs, community, church, comic shop, club, and seduce them. I was in film school and my crazy professor, this mad Russian, said, seduce them with your vision. And it's never left me. So it's kind of your job to do that too. So circle of influence, you're the center, and the whole world goes out.
And I think one of the things too, at least for us at Creature and what's helped us, is that there's a lot of ways, you have Facebook and everything else, and you can advertise, but it's just like flyers. Like you could be outside handing out flyers, but how many people are going to drop those flyers? But if you're going to do a con, don't sit at the table looking down at a book or drawing, unless you're doing commissions and that's your thing, that's fine. But like I stand up all day. My legs kill me at the end because I'm talking to everybody that comes to our booth. And as long as you have a good interchange with them, that you can talk and you make a relationship. I've had guys come back and they're literally like talking to me like old friends, like, hey man, what's up? I got this. And they buy our books and it's awesome. It's great because you have return customers. And I have a thing that I really believe that if you go, and it's kind of what he was saying is like if you can work locally, you can and build a good foundation, you can go globally. Like in Miami and South Florida, like our book center are in all these different comic book shops. We go to every con and at any con that's near us. You know, we talk to every people know us, and with that you have a strong foundation that when you want to go later on. And as much as you can get hits and get stuff out, forming a real relationship with a reader, with somebody that is a fan of your work, is worthwhile. Because then after a while, those are the people that will pick up anything you do.
Yes.
And that's the best thing you can have.
And they evangelize. They tell all their friends.
I did a panel last night, and it was one of the first times for me, but it was great. This guy comes up to me, and he's like, everybody told me to get Tommy. And they told me to come to you. And I was just like, okay, here you go. Awesome. That's what I want. And that's the best thing you can have. That word of mouth is probably still the best thing in the world. It's better than Facebook.
Yes.
You can get the word out. People will be, oh, I think I heard about that. But nothing is better than your friend coming up to you and saying, you know, I heard this thing. It's really, that'll influence you 10 times more.
Hey, that just brought up a point that I love to tell people. In the entertainment world, when you're selling your stuff, it is the greatest thing that anyone has ever seen in the world. And when I tell people that my comic is the best comic in the world, I'm not lying to them. It's expected. Why would I tell you that, oh, well, you know, it's not really as good as Alan Moore and Swamp Thing and all this stuff. Why would you never downplay your project. You always talk it up. It's expected in the entertainment world.
Really? I was growing this beard to look like Alan Moore.
Well, you know,
I'm a widget.
You're like a tenth of the way.
Yeah, I'm a tenth.
you got a way to go, but you know, your comic book is the best comic book being made right now.
Exactly.
You know, you've got to be.
The paradigm I've always operated on was looking at bands that I like and see them do road work. So a band starts out, wherever they start out, then they start going across the country and playing to more people. And to this day, that's how I see it. So when I come to MegaCon, live in Arizona, I'm on tour. And it's like I am spreading the word. I don't play an instrument, but I'm out there relating to the fans who like it. I'm looking to this day, I'm trying to convert new people. Hey, you know what this is about? I'll tell you what it's about. And that's how it's always occurred to me. You know, it's like I'm on tour like Kiss. I'm going to, the comic book guy version of it. And you know, spread the word, spread the word, spread the word.
Yeah, be knowledgeable too about the product more than like you say, you know, play it up. So, you know, have a pitch, you know, figure out what you're gonna say when they're like, this is a book, it's kind of about, you know, there's a guy and he's got a sword, you know, it's like King Arthur, you know, you have your, you know, elevator pitch for everything you do.
I think that's cool, but you know, I do feel bad for people who have tattooed some of my less popular characters on themselves. You know, you're like, yeah, that only lasted 3 issues. I'm sorry, dude. Hey, Ryan stuff's telling me now that the lady died. Oh, look at that. My stuff totem. Who was that guy? It was like some weird monkey. No, it was a weird guy.
Well, you know, if you touch people, it's like I had some people for this movie Bloodshot that we brought into MegaCon. The actors, Michael Bailey Smith and Brendan Elliott, were at our booth, and Brendan Elliott has never been to a comic convention. He's not our people. He's not a nerd. He's a great-looking guy. Hollywood guy. I'm saying great-looking guy. He's not
the best-looking guy ever.
Right. Well, besides you guys. But he's sitting there and he's like in awe of the whole culture, the whole scene. He says, these are the most honest people I've ever seen. I'm so used to Hollywood and the fake stuff. These people have no frills. They're out and they're having fun. This is what life's really about. And I thought, that's great. That's a great perspective. And then a kid came and had the guy's movie that he made 15 years ago that only sold in Japan, and had it, and he's like, he couldn't believe it. So he touched them. So I'm saying, he touched. Our dream as creators is to touch somebody in a way that they have a moment that they think about that. So if they have a tattoo of totem, you touch them, Jim. So don't get depressed. Don't get depressed about it.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I remember somebody in the audience getting up one time and he said, I read your comic online. You know what I had a problem with? And I was going, well, I'll tell you what my problem with is my comics aren't sold online. So you're like complaining about the quality of a radio when you stole my car. And, but that's neither here nor there. But it's a very weird thing when you see your work online.
I just know next year that's going to be the topic. I think the whole quarantine thing. I've had several of those questions this con, and everybody's worried about it.
Well, it's been being done forever. It's not like it's not. I mean, my books that were produced 6 years ago, within a month, some guy in Ecuador or Russia had already scanned it and slapped it up online.
His name was Kim.com. He has a mansion down in New Zealand. He just got arrested.
Well,
I think I uploaded.
you get to a point where you go, listen, I can't beat you. You know, I'm not going to be able to go over and shut down a server in Antigua because you have copies of Totem or Tempest or Dragon Cross or Mega One, and I look at it and I'm going, well, that's, you know, but don't think that retailers don't do the same thing when they have the right to return a comic book and they just tear the cover off and give your book away for free. It's, or Barnes and Noble, for example, where they can return whatever they want. Nothing. I want you to know, if you have the chance to go to Barnes & Noble and you go to the coffee area and you see somebody break with 8 graphic novels on the table, you know, if you punch him, I will represent you for free. Okay? Because they just read all your stuff, sit in there and walk away, and they just return and you wound up paying for that book. So I don't know what's worse, reading it online or getting mugged in Barnes & Noble. It still feels the same way. And in the end, you just hope that they take your stuff to the next level and you make your money in Hollywood and not off the print stuff.
Jeff will be handing out his legal representation cards in just a little bit. But are there any questions from the audience?
Have any of you guys ever thought about working in the mainstream, like to help maybe fund that, or like did you ever attempt that before going into indie comics or anything like that?
What do you mean mainstream, like Marvel, DC?
Yeah, bigger.
Well, write me a check, I'll work for Marvel and DC. That's not our
Speaking for myself, I've never had an interest in working for hire. My attraction to comics is telling the story I want to tell, and I love and enjoy reading Captain America, for example, or Thor, but I never aspired to work for a baseless corporation. It just wasn't my thing, speaking for me. But I mean, I get that it's valid. I very much enjoy the people who do that. Just for me, guys I like, guys like Stephen King, and just need telling new stories all the time. And
Brian, I'm sure you've been asked to write for them.
it was pretty cool. I actually wrote a 4-issue series in the late 90s for Marvel called The Supernaturals, and it was during the comic boom. And I felt like the Sex Pistols signing to EMI Records because I was paid, that was crazy time, paid an exorbitant amount of money. And I got to do whatever I wanted, and that's pretty much all I had to say on the topic, frankly. So, just speaking for myself, I don't aspire.
I'd like to write this. I admit it. I grew up with these characters like Spider-Man. If I can control Spider-Man for 5 pages, that would be a nice dream for me. It doesn't mean that. I mean, I love going, well, I created this and talking about my stuff, but to control a character that I've read all my life, I think would be ridiculously cool. And it just because, you know, I have that fanboy in me. I love creating stuff, but
Well, let me go down the list. If you could write a character for the mainstream, one, who would it be?
Probably Wolverine.
All right, Martin.
Superman.
Ricardo.
I'm more like in Brian's camp. I have tons of stories of my own to tell.
No, not interested.
Yeah.
And so you're Spider-Man, Jeff.
just Peter Parker for 5 pages.
Brian?
Well, if you're asking me though, I would do Deathlock, and I would have it like kill off all the heroes. That's for real.
Well, in the back of my mind, I have a Batman story that I think would set DC on its butt. But it's a fantasy. They're never going to ask me to write for them in a million years.
Yeah, to me, it's like it would be fun.
I think that new book you have, Skin Doctor.
Yeah.
If that sold, I mean, come on. I just saw Bendis write a novel for what's that?
Oh yeah, see, mention me and Brian Bendis in the same sentence again.
See, I think all you have to do is write something big, and they go, okay. Like for example, Babylon 5. You do something, and then Marvel goes, oh yeah, you have a name, we'll let you write a book.
Well, we're all dreamers. Everybody here is dreamers. My dream is that one day, something that I've created will catch, and the doors of Hollywood and everything will open, and I'll kick it down and drag everybody with me, because I know we've got better stories than they do.
Would you drag me along with you?
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys got this is where really cutting edge stuff comes, is in the independent world. People are telling the same old stories over and over again, and it gets tiresome. I hate to go to a movie that's predictable. How many movies do you see that's unpredictable? When it's unpredictable, I'm enjoying the entertainment. But when I know what the person's going to say next,
You look at the movie poster and you already figured out.
You already figured out the story. It drives me crazy.
Then this happens, and then the best friend comes in.
Side note, my movie recommendation of the week is the movie Take Shelter. If you haven't seen it, see it. Michael Shannon's in it. rad film. Take Shelter, R-rated film.
John, you had a question? You don't? Do you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
You're sort of, I mean, you're sitting out there as a fan, but you're certainly
Just listening
creative.
to what these guys are talking about, I've been doing comics for a long time, and I stopped for a while, got back into it. I started when Brian started. I used to do a book called Double Impact back in the days with my partner Ricky Carolero.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
I remember back in the days.
Of course. Absolutely.
And those are the heydays.
You always reminisce to me about how many copies you'd sell at a con.
Oh, yeah. Well, Brian gave me a sense of that too. It was crazy money back in the days, you know.
Ridiculous. You don't want to get into it.
We want to
Volunteer to get into
We
it.
would walk away with boxes of money, but you know, it's not like that anymore. You know.
Yeah, you guys are spending money.
Now we're putting out boxes of money, but you know, we do this because you have a passion for this. If you don't have a passion for this, don't get into it. You gotta want to do this, and if you love it as much as you think you do, then go for it. But I did this because I love it, and I don't want to do anything else. This is my dream to do it again.
Well, we're looking for one last question from the audience, and we'll give you right there. Come on, stand up and give us a question.
Hi, what was the moment for you guys when you finally decided I'm going to stop what I'm doing, working at whatever job you were at, and I'm going to pursue comics with everything I've got?
I think I'm still working.
I'm still working 9 to 5. Luckily, I was an art director for Oliva Cigar, doing like international, national campaigns. Now, I ended up, well, we got an argument, so I kind of quit, got fired from that job because I was sick of it. I was just sick of it. I didn't want to do it anymore. And luckily, I landed on my feet. I have a great job archiving art for a private collection. But yeah, I still do it 9 to 5. So it's like working 2 jobs. I don't have weekends. And that's what comes with this. You don't get to hang out with your friends. You don't really get to hang out with your family.
You don't know what the latest movie is.
Yeah, I don't know what the latest. I work with filmmakers, and they were like that. And they're like, just, you know, you okay? You know, I think I haven't seen half the films. Last time I was in the theaters in March. I mean, you don't do that. You're working at home. And luckily, I have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman that understands that, and she's like, okay, don't worry, I'll go make the coffee. So it works out for me. And I think that's the biggest thing that you're going to spend is your time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the money comes and goes. Money's going to come and go. Good things can happen and bad things can happen. But time, yeah, that's something you're going to spend a lot of. So for me, I haven't done that yet. I can't wait. But for now, I'm living it. I mean, this is a dream come true to be at a con and selling my books and being around my people and just talking and stuff. I mean, to me, it's awesome. So I'm already living it pretty good. Now, you know, the money.
So you feel the reward even here without the monetary reward. It's the passion,
I mean, last night I had
the passion reward.
Last night I had a beautiful moment because I was doing the Nerd Nation panel and a guy got up and said, I bought your comic last year, I read it, and you guys and your energy inspired me to go make my own comic book. And I'm doing that now. And I was like, I was going to cry right there. Like,
see, I love that feeling, but my wife always says that doesn't pay the bills.
I know, that's the one thing. In the end, that's great, that keeps you going, but, you know, I think still like a quarter.
I think it's true with anything creative, whether it's filmmaking or writing a comic book or trying to create any kind of property that you may eventually live off of. You know, Brian Michael Bendis and Robert Kirkman had a great discussion online about this, and you know, Brian Michael Bendis called what Robert Kirkman experienced rarefied air. He was breathing rarefied air. It's really funny.
Especially Sense of Powers is getting torpedoed.
And
it's a nightmare.
I just think you have to have another reward besides the money. And money may come, but it's going to take a lot of dedication where a lot of people are going to quit before they get there, you know? So I think you have to have something else that fuels you in the meantime.
Oh, and because of the money, because of the time, if your family and your friends and if your circle around you is not on board, you're going to implode. You have to have that support structure, you know? Like his beautiful girlfriend supports him.
Yeah.
So that you know, real quick for you, the difference between a dream and a goal is what you're talking about. And when they say they work 9 to 5, for 7 years, you know, if you love something enough, you fight your hardest for it. But I can tell you, I'm one of these people who need something else too. So I will, even if I was writing comic books full time, I will do something else on top of that because my brain just forces me to be constantly interested in something.
I agree with that.
And you never, it's great, Brian's probably one of the only ones here who have had the opportunity to just do what he loves over a long period of time. I have to practice law to fund my desire to fight for my other goal, and I'm fortunate that my wife and my child Julia here, who's suffering greatly, is willing to support me, and I can't ask for any more than that. And but if you want to do it, you have to understand that it is not a party. There are times you're going to be completely miserable fighting for your dream, and you have to, eventually you're going to have to make the decision to move forward or stop. And that's the thing we all live with on a daily basis. So.
I had your exact story. I highly don't recommend doing this, but I think it was January '90. I was working as an assistant director of commercials and music videos, and I stopped taking work. I luckily sold 2 series to Dark Horse. I drove down all my overhead expenses, and then started working on another comic, Evil Ernie. And again, I don't recommend it, but I boxed myself in where there was no other choice. I was either going to work or I was going to crash and burn. And in our case, it did work out. I don't recommend it, but there are times in my life where that's kind of the choice for me. It's like, okay, that's it. I'm just doing this. That's it. And it's got to work. It kind of causes a whole different mindset. It's like, okay, there's no out here. Go.
John?
I've got a question for Brian. Are you ever going to bring back Evil Ernie? Because I love that book. That was killer, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much. No current plans for Evil Ernie. He after the course of 52 issues, he successfully brought about nuclear war and killed all life on the planet. Yeah, so he reached his goal.
But see, that's where at the end, the cockroach pops out.
Right, yeah, it's a little small.
Maybe we can have a reincarnation of Evil Ernie. That'd be pretty cool. I love that book.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I like that dark stuff.
I reread Evil Ernie recently, and I don't want this to sound strange, but that was a fun comic.
Yeah, we got to bring it back, man.
Thank you.
Well, we're running out of time, but I know that I brought some issues and some other creators brought some issues. If you want to come forward and grab a few samples, you certainly can. If you want to meet some people, talk to them, we have about 5 minutes in this room left. Thank you all so much, and thank you to these wonderful creators.